Welcome to the second Ahead of the Curve webinar. We're excited to have you today. Today, we're going to be hearing about how XM can thrive in our new normal of a low contact environment. As I'm sure some of you know, if not most of you, Diamond has a very rich history of experiential marketing and a fantastic team. And I'm really excited to introduce the presenters we have today. Since we've been in quarantine, our two speakers have been working hard, talking with clients, vendors, and partners to understand how XM needs to evolve and are here today to share their findings, and they're really great. Nicole McCallum is a group account director at Diamond and has been specifically looking at human behavior in quarantine and how it has changed and evolved. Her specific focus has been to understand both the recognized and unrecognized needs of people and how XM campaigns can meet them. Abigail St. Pierre is a tenured senior event producer for our experiential marketing campaigns. She's been looking at the convergence of health, safety, and human interaction to understand what strategic and tactical changes we need to make to bring XM campaigns back in a way that people want and frankly need. Thank you so much for presenting to us today. And to everybody that's watching, thanks again for joining the second Ahead of the Curve webinar. And we hope you enjoy your time today.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We definitely find ourselves in some extraordinary times, and that's one of the things we want to take a look at. A quick disclaimer. So this is not a medical deck. This is for informational purposes only. We are, in fact, not medical experts or virologists, but we have been collecting a lot of information. That information is vast. It is changing every day. And truly, science is our friend in this environment. So everything we're sharing has been sourced through reputable channels, and we will be making some speculations based on this information. So that is what we are not. But let's talk about what we are. We are an agency that strives to truly understand human behavior, peeling away that onion of human insight, articulating comprehensive customer-first marketing strategies, and really connecting brands to the values of their customers. Taking a look at today, we're going to do a quick review of our current state, really discuss the importance of human engagement, why it matters, provide our point of view on how brands will be able to connect in this new COVID environment of ours, and really identify some key benefits and opportunities that we actually still have available to us, some of them new and emerging, and some of them based on what we already know. So the value of experiential marketing is well established. We're not going to go through why it's important. I think everyone knows. And truly, if you weren't appreciative of that point, you probably wouldn't be here today. What we will do is ground ourselves in the conversation with the understanding that attract, engage, and deliver are the core tenets of any great experience. But in today's environment, how is this relevant? We do understand XM is not part of every marketing mix. But for those brands and companies who do rely on creating consumer experiences, really benefiting from that one-to-one human engagement, we are under immense pressure. There are no events. And it's scary. So there's no face-to-face interaction with our consumers. We have lost those amazing opportunities. And yet what we're constantly talking about is flattening the curve. What does that really mean? Flattening the curve is a management technique. Sadly, there is no light switch or magic button that's going to return, poof, everything back to normal. That would be amazing. But flattening the curve and the COVID management phenomenon has become so incredibly powerful that it has created a global change to our very vernacular. We now use the term new normal. New normal did not exist 3 months ago, but now it is everywhere. And I'm willing to bet new normal will take the prize as the most influential phrase of 2020. But as much as we talk about it, this is a transition state, and it doesn't truly have a timeline attached to it right now. But again, we can make assumptions. So looking at this chart provided by Morgan Stanley, it's a projected timeline based on the US, but as their closest neighbors, we can really assume that a lot of this will apply to us as well. Essentially, as cases drop, we will start to hit those key milestones: serology, development of a faster, possibly, hopefully, instant or within under 2-minute testing options. Hospitals will actually become hospitals again and not just centers for viral control. People will go back to work, children will go back to school, and things will start to open up. But this transition will happen slowly. Life will return, but not as it was. We will have to live in new normal. Fortunately for us, we do have the benefit of almost having a bit of a crystal ball. We are in the sort of the mid-range when you look at COVID from a global phenomenon. And as we had the benefit of looking at those countries where the pandemic hit early and how they managed the pandemic, we also have the ability to look at them and learn valuable lessons about how they're existing a new normal and what that will look like. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. If we look at Iran, this is a picture of the Grand Bazaar. This is the largest tourist attraction in Iran, and it is actually open for customers, but under new rules. Obviously, people are wearing face masks, there's more personal protection equipment, and they're only open for limited hours, but still open. Hong Kong. This is a picture of a restaurant. So restaurants are coming back. I don't know how many of you have been to Hong Kong or experienced it, but it is a crazy place. There's bustling, crowded energy. Every restaurant is packed all the time. And that sort of energy and spice of life is not going to be achieved right now when people are sitting, as you can see, every second or third table. But again, this is the transition of new normal. And in this, there is opportunity. This is my favorite. Sports is a passion of mine, and it is a global passion. Taiwan they really nailed this one. They went ahead with their opening season for baseball. They were a little bit delayed, so it was April 12th. And what they did to help inspire the players is they put drum machines and robots and a fake audience there to sort of create the idea of that audience participation. South Korea was a bit more pragmatic about it. They didn't support it as well, but the point is that sports are also becoming open, and they will come open for us as well. So this is all very promising, but let's move it a little bit closer to home. Ontario did release their gradual reopening plan, like most provinces. So it is a stage plan. Again, no timelines are associated with this, but what we're really looking here is stage 3. That's where we're heading through flattening the curve. But this is not an endpoint. This is going to be the longest phase of new normal, which will truly persist until there's a widespread vaccine. Again, timelines are open, but we're looking anywhere from the recent studies from 14 months to 2 years. So this is going to be the status quo for an extended period of time, and where we need to find opportunities for brands to coexist in this new normal. It's important. When we get back to a sense of normalcy, people are going to crave interactions. But why? What is the power of human interaction, and why does it really matter? Ultimately, by nature, we are pack animals. We take comfort in those around us. Truly, people need people. There's a great song about it, and it's very true, especially today. Now, as we went into quarantine, social media has played a significant role in help filling that gap that social distancing created. Well, physical distancing created, and social media close the gap of social distancing. But not all channels have emerged with equal engagement. It's really not enough just to text or just to message people. We really crave that desire to see and be seen, to interact with faces and voices and conversation and nuance in a conversation. It's create something closer to real. In this environment, some of those apps like House Party, Nextdoor, that are able to create that one-to-one sort of real life interaction, they have seen a massive influx in new users, up to 75% more new customers, which is amazing. Other Facebook, Instagram, other social apps, they've also seen an increase in engagement, but it's with existing customers. Existing users are on for 27 to 40% longer, but they haven't seen that influx of new people. So let's take a look at Facebook. Facebook is a fantastic platform. It's filled with opportunity. It's so much fun. I mean, my own personal experience, when I look at my Facebook, it actually looks like quarantine is not that bad. It's really a series of cozy, chic relaxation images, punctuated by moments of gourmet cooking and odd bit of crafting that I had no idea my friends and family were capable of. But why isn't this enough? Even with 1,000 likes, why do we still feel lonely with that environment? Social media delivers on the idea of connection, but it actually can't deliver on our physical need for connection. We are victims of our own chemistry, and one thing we really need is oxytocin. Oxytocin is the love hormone. It increases happiness, reduces stress, creates a physical reaction in us that actually causes us to be more kind towards others. And it doesn't have to be intimate contact. So oxytocin comes to light when you touch another person or when you get eye contact with another person. But even brushing arms with that stranger who's sitting beside you at a concert releases oxytocin. And you're going through the grocery store and you have a lovely quick smile of engagement with the registration clerk or the register clerk, that releases oxytocin. And because we need that physical release of oxytocin, we need this rush. We need other people. Personally, as our time in isolation has forced every generation to embrace increased technology, I've used it more as well, from the silent generation right down to the youngest generations. We've all used technology more. And as we come out of this environment of not being able to see people, every single person will also have a need to experience real people. They're not saying no to invitations anymore. The pandemic has really illuminated a frailty in our construct of what social freedom is. What we once really took for granted, we're now really craving, and people more than ever want to get out there. A recent survey done by IMI was talking specifically to Canadians. Canadians are expressing a 24% increase in their desire to be out and to be at events and be in real experiences again, experiences with other people. So as our time apart and away from these experiences is extended, this desire to be a part of something is actually growing. We want to be with other people. Unfortunately, we are going to have to do this in a different way and likely in different places. One thing we really have to look at in this environment is that health is now the new wealth. Wealth is an extraordinary concept. It's not only subjective from person to person, but it actually responds to external pressures. Really amazing study with Chinese citizens said that 75% of them were more concerned about their health 2 months into recovery. So we have to assume and be aware that this mindset is going to persist. Even, it's going to persist through our new normal, absolutely, but it's likely going to persist past that point as well. So the importance of delivering on that hyper awareness and our refined definition of what health means really has to be at the forefront of everything that we do. But this brings us to an awkward moment. How do we bring these two opposing insights to life? How do we bring this new definition of health to the forefront, ensuring consumers want to engage, they feel safe, it's a low-touch environment, while still delivering that rush of oxytocin that we really need to feel like it's a human interaction? It's an awkward question. It is our reality, and truly, this is our challenge. So over to you, Abby.
So I just want to start by saying that there will be opportunities for brands to engage, but we are going to have to change the way we do things. This is the model that we've been using since XM has been created, and it's worked really well until now. But for live experiences to work, we need to rethink the way we attract consumers, engage with them, and deliver samples. It's not just for a month or two, but for at least a year and maybe even 2. So we must build that framework now for what our new normal will look like. So we now need to rethink what attracts consumers to our activation and help them overcome apprehension by demonstrating and visualizing safety. So attract now actually comes attract safely. We also need to rethink where and how we engage with our consumers. This may be live and in person, or it may be online, or it may also be a combination of both. Engaging with thousands of people in a single day at a festival and large events are simply not available anymore. Our locations have changed, and with that, so does our plan. We need to make that engagement work harder for us. So engage actually now becomes engage in new places. And we need to rethink our delivery. It does need to be safe, and technology will play a big role, but we must find a way to release oxytocin and create human connection. So deliver now becomes deliver with humanity. So let's first look at attraction. Attracting people to your activation isn't just about a great idea, an engaging experience, or for a simple sampling program, approaching consumers on the street and handing out samples. We must rethink what will attract and inspire consumers to take part and engage. A great experience is engaging. It appeals to the senses with physical size or light, sound, and visuals, and it is clear what the consumer will gain from participating. If you create an experience that provides value to the people who pass by it, they are more likely to participate. So let's take for an example, Lean Cuisine. They built this great experience in Grand Central Station that stopped people in their tracks. They asked people how they weighed themselves instead of how much they weighed. So each participant wrote their story on a scale and hung it on the gallery for passersby to see. It was a journey of love, self-love, and it actually unveiled that people wanted to be weighed by their actions and their voice rather than their appearance. It was quite moving and inspiring and definitely released oxytocin. And the large gallery-like wall attracted many people as they passed by. This was primarily an analog experience, but for more of a digital experience, we look at Oreo. In 2014, Oreo created a trending vending activation where guests could actually create their own custom Oreo. And through the magics of robotics, it would create their custom cookie live. This was set up at South by Southwest and had long lineups around the block. Who wouldn't want to create their own cookie, right? Well, both of these ideas were fantastic and are considered best in class. And as great as they were, when you think about it now in today's society, it actually will no longer work in this environment. And sadly, these would no longer be considered best in class. And this is actually due to safety. Now, we've always demonstrated safety, but there is a heightened awareness by consumers, as we mentioned earlier, that health is the new wealth. So you now must demonstrate and visualize safety in order to gain consumer trust. If the experience is not safe, people will not engage. So my first example here is the floor decals. We've seen them everywhere. We've seen them in grocery stores, in the LCBO. They're used for lineup and crowd management, and a really great tool for social distancing. So these are a great thing to incorporate into your experience, but it's also, when I look at this, I look at an opportunity. It's an opportunity for wayfinding. So people can also be driven to your activation as well as stay 6 feet apart. We also have to make sure that there's proper and frequent sanitization. So again, even if you're creating a completely contactless experience, people will still touch the activation. So it needs to be sanitized on a regular basis. And also install signs that show the time and date that it actually has been cleaned. There's reports from China where people are actually, taking temperatures, applying it to the person that delivered your food. And, this is all just helping to build trust. So again, signs and proper and frequent sanitation is key. Less human-to-human contact is also key. We know that gloves, people still touch their face with it. So again, looking at unique ways to make sure that there's less human-to-human contact. And ensure PPE equipment is provided when humans are part of your activation. We want to make sure that they're safe. So let's look again at our examples of lean cuisine and Oreo. These are great examples of attracting physically and digitally. And in the past, these did a really, really great job of attracting people. But both would need to develop a plan for their lineups. The Lean Cuisine Gallery wall would still be there to attract attention, but would have to become something like a digital screen. And instead of writing the message on a physical object, we could actually look at connecting through people's mobile devices. And then the mobile devices would then push all of those messages onto a large digital screen. The touch screens in the Oreo activation, where people would make create their custom creations, we could actually look at replacing that with consumer mobile devices as well. And both activations had a number of motivators teaching people how to engage. They would need to replace the motivators either with screens or put them behind protective barriers to make sure that everything was safe. And then, of course, both activations would need to install hand sanitizing stations, as guests would want to try those Oreo cookies right away. So the main takeaway here is keep safety top of mind. People will not engage in your activation if it's not safe. Now let's think about the engagement. We definitely have to rethink where we're going to engage, how we're going to engage, and also find opportunities to re-engage. Essentially, explore your opportunities to engage in new places. As large public gatherings are prohibited for the foreseeable future, we will be forced to rethink the way we choose locations for activations. This is a great photo of Taste of the Danforth. This is right up the street from me. I absolutely love going here, lots of food. And obviously this was a great environment to connect with millions of people on a single weekend. And we're just not going to see that. The reality is for the next couple of years, while this whole phase 3 is rolling out, we're just not going to be able to be in these types of environments. So your only opportunity is to meet your target consumer where they spend their time. It may not drive mass sampling numbers, but the quality of those connections will actually be invaluable. So places like grocery stores where people are already going, and parks where we know they're going to go once things open. We've already seen this in New York this past weekend. They were packed, as well as in China. So as an example, Lara Bar has been hyper-focusing their target consumer in gyms and yoga events and parks for several years with their fleet of sampling bikes. And this was actually a great way to kind of find your customer and get right to them. But it's not just about meeting the consumer in the right place. Lara Bar went to gyms at the right times to catch consumers when they were leaving classes. In this environment, consumers were more willing to have a conversation and try the product, which led to fantastic comments. They loved the taste and they loved the benefits. Again, these activations will all need modifications for safety, PPE equipment, line management, and sanitization, but it's a great example of how you can meet your target where they spend their time. And look for opportunities. Pay attention to where your consumers are going and what's available to them. I look at this photo and I actually see tons of opportunities. It actually reminds me of standing in line at a Winners or a Sephora, where there's lots of goodies for me to look at. And right now it's just crates, but it could be replaced with things. Maybe there's a media opportunity. Maybe there's activation space opportunity. So again, this is something that we're probably going to see for a few years still. So again, maybe there's ways that we can augment this. Maybe there's an opportunity here. And as we won't see large crowds anymore, you don't have to wait for passersby to actually come to your footprint and walk past it. You can also invite people to your experience through social influencers or mobile push notifications. This will help drive awareness and consideration. Again, these have always been tactics we encourage for campaigns. It's a great way to find your target online and share the location of your experience so they can interact with your brand in person. And for safety, this is also a great opportunity to manage the consumer flow. You can ask consumers to pre-register in advance to ensure they get their chance to engage. We've seen this work in the past for some fantastic pop-up experiences. So decide how your brand is comfortable engaging with consumers. It may be online, it may be through limited modified contact, or it may be through technology and mechanics. But due to safety, I believe technology has a bigger role to play than ever before. Now, integrating technology is not a new thing, but by digitizing your experience, it offers the ability to create a safe engagement, but it also gives you an opportunity as a launch pad for a re-engagement plan. So let's look again at our best-in-class example. Earlier, for safety, we recommended integrating consumer mobile devices to both of these activations. Well, the consumer would need to log in in order for the activation to actually know who to respond to. During that onboarding phase, we can capture name, age, and email, and with this data, we can re-engage. We can drive them to your website, we can offer coupons, we can invite them to social channels, all of which just makes that initial interaction even more valuable. Just because we don't have the crowds doesn't mean we can't be successful. By re-engaging, you can embolden your own channels. By re-engaging, it actually allows you to encourage product ratings, generate social content, and social impressions. So build a re-engagement strategy to continue the conversation and keep your brands top of mind. People are online more than ever, and we expect that behavior to stick around during recovery. That means more opportunity to re-engage. Re-engagement is done through using benefits and insights gained through digitization. But by integrating technology, we can now collect an infinite number of other data points as well. This can be done through seeding questions like what flavors do they prefer, or where they shop, or what they do for fun. However, we do want to keep the onboarding simple, so keep those questions simple and keep them to a minimum. There's always an opportunity to ask more questions during your re-engagement phase. And by collecting and analyzing data, it actually unlocks a roadmap to help you understand your demographic better and make more informed decisions. So what this means is that the currency of a sample can actually mean more than it has ever in the past. By integrating technology and digitizing your experience, it opens up all sorts of opportunities that didn't always exist in traditional sampling programs. With hundreds of data points available to us, you can actually build and refine consumer profiles to make your other channels more efficient. As an example, you may run an activation at a park and meet Bob, who loves chocolate and basketball, and then there's Sarah, who loves strawberries and yoga. You end up meeting a lot more Bobs and a lot more Sarahs, and soon enough, there's a pattern that's emerged. You can now use this information to develop a profile on Bob and Sarah, what they like, where they spend their time, and if they liked your product. Then connect this data into any other tool in your tech stack, helping you plan more efficiently. If you're launching a product that Bob will like, you now know a bit more about him, and you can actually tailor your experience and your location to him. At Diamond, we upload all of this data that we collect into a system called Domo, and this actually allows us to pull insights and predict and adapt for the future programs to produce better results for our clients. So the main takeaway here is engage in new places, look for opportunities, integrate digital, and build a re-engagement strategy to make your engagement work harder for you. So now let's think about the delivery. If you have a product or a premium to distribute within your experience, the delivery of your sample needs to be done safely, which inevitably leads to technology. And as Nicole mentioned earlier, every generation has been forced to embrace increased technology due to isolation. So this actually shouldn't be really hard. It wouldn't be much of a stretch for them. But we also can't ignore that the aftermath of this isolation will increase our desire to seek out novel, real-time, in-person experiences. So we must find a way to deliver with humanity. We can do this with humans or machines, but a hybrid of both is where we feel the real opportunity actually lies. So traditional sampling programs primarily use brand ambassadors to distribute samples. In a post-COVID-19 sampling world, you can still integrate humans. Human-to-human contact is still important. Brand ambassadors are still one of the best ways to deliver your message and inspire trial. And of course, release oxytocin. And people can get close enough for conversation. And when Canadians do emerge, they will want to create connections. But if you are going to use humans, safety needs to come first, as we mentioned earlier. You need to protect the consumer as well as yourself. So again, check your staff for signs of cold every day and schedule backup staff. Ensure PPE equipment is provided, build barriers between staff and consumers like grocery stores, and offer complimentary no-touch sanitization stations with every activation. And of course, pay close attention to government rules and regulations. If a second wave does hit, you need to act fast and pivot your plan. For a truly contactless experience, we look to technology. There are many vessels that already exist that can distribute your product. It's about finding the best solution for your brand and the safest way to dispense. So let's explore a few different types that can be used. Machine delivery mechanisms have actually existed for years. This is a photo of a vintage gumball machine. And as you can see, there's a little crank and it goes down, and lots of fun. I remember being a kid, I didn't even like gum. I just wanted one to watch it go down that little spiral. So these have existed forever. We also have vending machines. We're very familiar with these as well. There's the original kind, there's touch screens, but all of these spread germs. We can't be touching things anymore. So we need to find a new way to do it. Now, I just wanted to share this because we've all seen these. These have been around for a very long time. This is a great way to create a contactless experience that already exists. So it's very low investment for brands because you can just rent one of these. But you also have to consider that not everybody has a social account. So some brands want to be a little more inclusive, so they may want to consider other methods. And again, it doesn't have to look like a vending machine. It just needs to safely hold and dispense your product. So what are other ways to unlock and dispense without touch? Let's take a look. Well, you can actually connect your vending machine type thing to pressure pads or pedals. So again, feet can open up your experience. You can unlock with your mobile device using a QR code. You can integrate voice or motion sensors or even face recognition. This here was a stunt years ago at an airport, and it was a coffee machine and there was nowhere to pay and people were kind of looking around, wondering what to do. And it actually was triggered by a yawn. So if you yawned, it would actually dispense a free coffee. Again, this was a fun little activation, but it actually was contactless. So it's something, again, that can be considered. Motion technology like Connect is fantastic. It actually just picks up your movements, and you can actually encourage an action for a reward. So get them moving, get them, doing really cool actions, and then it can actually be connected to something like a vending machine and dispense. So here's a great example of incorporating a vending machine with voice recognition. Google actually created a 20-foot gumball machine for the Las Vegas Tech Show last January, I believe. And this was pre-COVID, but it's a great example of what this could look like. So you can see it's quite large, it's very colorful, there's a large digital screen, and people did want to engage with it. And then inside all those little gumballs were actually prizes. But as I mentioned earlier, all that technology is fantastic. Where we feel the real opportunity lies is merging that technology that we just talked about with for safety, but actually merging it with human interaction to release the oxytocin. So imagine being greeted by a real human with a smile on their face or with welcoming eyes if they're wearing a mask, either in person or live streaming. That person engages and offers key messaging. And when it's time to receive the sample, the delivery of the sample may be controlled by the brand ambassador, but the machine itself delivers the sample. If we can make this happen, we will find the right balance and create that perfect, safe experience. Remember this gumball machine from earlier? Well, for a low-tech version of what we just talked about, you can actually create something like this with a lever or a crank, but actually just have your brand ambassador be the only one touch it. And again, it'll still release a sample, but you're not having multiple people touch the experience. Here's an example of Adidas. They created a slot machine where people would actually pull a lever and get a prize. Again, you can adjust this for the experience to have the brand ambassador control that. And of course, if you are bringing people into your experience, we want to make sure that we have PPE, But you also don't have to look clinical. I love these masks. I see different unique ones out and about right now. And I do think it's a great opportunity to really show your brand's fun side. So, this is something we can create very easily. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of this. So the main takeaway here is deliver with humanity. Technology can help make this safe, but you must make eye contact and smile with your consumer to fulfill that unrecognized need for human connection. So what does this mean for brands? Well, change is happening fast and new channels will become available quickly. And when they do, your brand has to be ready to strike. We hear that from the premier now almost daily. Be ready, be ready, be ready. This is why we want to kind of start talking about this now. Reconsider your components. Attract safely, engage in new places, and deliver with a human touch. And look for opportunities. Just because we are doing things differently doesn't mean we can't do things better. Brand must help consumers overcome apprehension and meet the unrecognized need for human connection. And if you can do that, you will have a much stronger chance of reaching consumers and creating a memorable brand experience. So when can we start this? I know we talked about some timelines earlier, but what we've actually done is predictively overlaid the Ontario Gradual Reopening Plan onto the Morgan Stanley graph. And what you're looking at here, this green area is just a prediction, and it's a prediction on the potential start dates. So it potentially could start July 1st, it could potentially start October 1st, it could be stretched a little longer, but from some of the things that we're hearing right now, there is that possibility that phase 3 could actually start within that time frame. So what we really want to do is make sure that we're starting these conversations now. We're really examining our brands and making sure that we have an action plan so that we're not left in the dust. Things are changing. There are better times ahead. And with proper planning and preparation, we can help people experience a better new normal until we are back to our old normal. Thank you.
So thank you again to Nicole McCallum and Abigail St. Pierre for this presentation. It was excellent, lots of valuable information. And I want to wish everyone the loveliest day. We'll speak to you all next week, once again, hopefully.